Let us face it, Americans do not exactly have the best reputation globally these days. Whether it is meddling in international affairs or American tourists going to other countries and acting like they own the entire place, the image is pretty rough. I am not saying other countries do not have their own set of deep issues, but American problems tend to bubble up to the very top of the global news feed. And if we are being completely honest, a lot of this friction comes from white Americans who think they are the main characters of the world. For a long time, white Americans treated the planet like a giant, all-inclusive resort where their privilege was the ultimate VIP pass. You have seen them, the ones who think a blue passport is a magic wand that can summon ranch dressing in the middle of a remote desert. Oh, you might have gotten some heavy side-eye from the locals when you tried to tip in a country that does not even use currency, but you were usually safe in your bubble. Well, I have some bad news. The world's manager is officially off the clock, and your subscription to being untouchable has officially expired. Today we look at the 7 countries in which white Americans are not likely to get a warm welcome. Number 7, Saudi Arabia. We are starting this list at number 7 with Saudi Arabia, a place where money simply cannot buy you a free pass to do whatever you want. A lot of white Americans travel abroad with the deeply ingrained assumption that their wealth and their status will bend the local rules to their will. They believe that if they just pay enough or complain loudly enough to a manager, any cultural barrier will just magically disappear for them. Saudi Arabia is currently going through massive changes and trying to boost tourism with their Vision 2030 plan, but their tolerance for Western entitlement is still absolutely zero. You cannot just show up in shorts or Daisy Dukes and expect the religious police to look the other way because you are a paying tourist. But modesty is deeply woven into the fabric of their entire society, and your personal comfort does not override their ancient and holy traditions. There is a very common habit among white Americans to point fingers at things or people when they are asking questions or giving directions. In Saudi Arabia, using your finger to point at someone is considered incredibly rude and offensive to the local culture. You are expected to use your chin instead of your hand to indicate a direction or a person if you want to remain respectful. Another major issue is the obsession with personal freedom and the constant need to document every single thing on a smartphone for Instagram. In the United States, people feel perfectly entitled to film anyone in public without asking for permission, claiming it is their legal right. If you try taking photos of random locals, women, on or government buildings in Saudi Arabia without explicit permission, you will end up in serious trouble. Your blue passport will not stop the authorities from confiscating your expensive phone or detaining you for violating their strict privacy laws. Public displays of affection are another massive flag that many Westerners casually ignore when they are on a vacation with their partner. Kissing or heavily embracing your partner in the middle of a street is a quick way to completely ruin your trip and end up in a police station. You also need to remember to remove your shoes when entering homes, as keeping them on is seen as bringing filth into a sacred living space. Avoid using your left hand for daily tasks like eating or shaking hands, as that hand is traditionally reserved for personal hygiene and is considered unclean. Respecting elders is not just a nice suggestion in this country, it is an absolute demand that carries heavy social weight and legal consequences. Many Americans have ignored these basic customs over the years, assuming the rules simply do not apply to them because they are guests. This exact behavior is exactly what built the ugly American stereotype that makes locals so completely exhausted by our presence in their land. The authorities are watching everything, and they have a very long memory for those who mock their way of life. Even if the skyscrapers look like New York, the laws are still firmly rooted in a world that does not care about your Western liberal values. You are a guest in their house, and you will be expected to bow to their customs or face the swift and harsh justice of the kingdom. Number 6, Russia. Moving on to number 6, we have Russia, a country where your American citizenship is actually your biggest liability and a constant danger. For decades, white Americans have traveled the globe assuming that foreign governments will leave them alone because of the power of the Pentagon. But the relationship between these two nations has completely shattered, and we are currently living through what feels like a second Cold War. And the Russian government does not look at a white American tourist and see a harmless visitor bringing fresh money into their struggling economy. They look at you and see a high-value political pawn that they can use for their own strategic advantage on the world stage. We have seen multiple cases recently where Americans are detained on completely fabricated charges or incredibly minor infractions that would be ignored elsewhere. Something as simple as carrying a legally prescribed medication from back home can suddenly be classified as international drug smuggling by a Russian judge. Once you are in their legal system, your white privilege and your demands to speak to the embassy will fall on deaf ears every single time. You are no longer a person with civil rights. You are a bargaining chip to be traded for Russian prisoners held in Western jails overseas. The local population is also not going to rally to your defense or offer you any hidden sympathies if you get into trouble. State-sponsored television has spent years feeding the public a steady diet of propaganda that paints Westerners as the ultimate existential enemy. Many everyday citizens completely believe this narrative and will view your presence in their city with deep suspicion and active hostility. Getting a visa to even enter the country is already a massive hurdle designed to keep you out and track you if you ever get in. If you do manage to jump through all those hoops, you are walking into a society that actively resents your perceived geopolitical arrogance. The United States government strongly advises against traveling there because they know exactly how helpless they are to rescue you from a cell. You cannot simply lawyer your way out of a Russian courtroom when the judge takes orders directly from the central government officials. The safety net you have always relied on back home simply does not exist once you cross into their territory and pass through customs. Your American confidence will vanish the second you realize that the authorities actually want to lock you up just to send a political message. Russia proves that sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can pack in your suitcase is a passport with an eagle on the front. In a country where dissent is crushed with an iron fist, an American tourist is the perfect target to prove a point to the rest of the world. Do not expect the police to help you, and do not expect the regular people to smile back when they hear your American accent. In the eyes of the Kremlin, you are not a visitor. You are a target of opportunity in a war that has no end in sight. Number 5. Venezuela. We have reached number 5, which is Venezuela, an authoritarian state where the police are actually your biggest threat to your safety. In the United States, many white Americans have a deep and unwavering trust in law enforcement and the local justice system. If someone looks at them wrong or they feel slightly inconvenienced, their immediate reaction is to call the authorities for help. They assume that a police uniform automatically means protection, safety, and a fair resolution to whatever problem they are facing. But when you take that exact same mindset to Caracas, you are stepping into a deadly and terrifying trap for the unwary. Venezuela is suffering from extreme corruption, political killings, and severe human rights abuses carried out directly by the state forces. The government actively resents the United States, and the feeling is entirely mutual, leading to the withdrawal of the U.S. Embassy staff years ago. If you get pulled over or questioned by Venezuelan authorities, throwing a tantrum and demanding your rights will seal your fate. You are not dealing with a system that cares about due process. You are dealing with a regime that disappears its critics forever without a trial. You do not even have to commit a real crime to find yourself locked in a horrific prison cell in this country. Simply being a foreigner, and especially an American, is more than enough justification for them to detain you indefinitely for questioning. They can accuse you of espionage, claim you are a spy trying to overthrow the government, and throw away the key to your cell. Your confident demands to speak to a manager or call your fancy lawyer will only provide them with entertainment while they lock you up. Other South American countries might have issues with street crime, but Venezuela has weaponized the entire government against Westerners. The people living there are already suffering under this oppressive system, and they cannot protect you from the secret police. Every single instinct you have about justice and fairness is completely inverted the moment you cross their borders. Venezuela teaches a brutal lesson that your American civil liberties absolutely do not travel with you in your leather suitcase. When the people in charge are the actual criminals, your privilege is nothing more than an invitation for them to destroy your life. The lack of an embassy means there is no one to track your whereabouts and no one to push for your release if you are taken. You are entering a black hole of justice where the only rule is survival and the only currency is political leverage. In this environment, your American confidence is seen as a weakness to be exploited by those who profit from human suffering. Number 4, Afghanistan. At number 4 is Afghanistan, a place where the illusion of Western safety has been completely eradicated by recent events. You do not need to be a foreign policy expert to know that Afghanistan is not a welcoming destination for American tourists. Following the chaotic withdrawal of American forces, the country is now entirely under the strict control of the Taliban regime. For 2 decades, the United States military operated in this territory. creating a legacy of extreme violence and deep resentment among the people. If you are a white American trying to visit for some misguided sense of adventure, you are making a fatal miscalculation of the risk. There is absolutely no formal tourism industry left to protect you, guide you, or keep you away from hostile elements. Word travels incredibly fast in these regions, and a Westerner walking around town will immediately attract the wrong kind of attention. You will essentially be hunted down by factions that have spent their entire lives fighting against everything you represent. Kidnapping, terrorist attacks, and hostage-taking are not just random risks. They are established tactics used to exert political power. The United States Embassy in Kabul has been closed for years, resulting in a massive spike in unlawful detentions of foreigners. If you are taken captive, there is no diplomatic channel to negotiate your release and no military force coming to save you. Many entitled travelers believe that their individual good intentions will somehow shield them from the historical anger of an entire nation. They think that a friendly smile and a few dollars will overcome the trauma of a 20-year-long military occupation of their land. The reality is that to the people holding the weapons, you are nothing but a symbol of the enemy that bombed their homes. Afghanistan is the ultimate hostile zone where your passport actively guarantees that you will be treated with extreme prejudice. You cannot buy your way out of this environment, and you certainly cannot demand your constitutional rights from a fundamentalist regime. It is a completely unforgiving landscape where American privilege is met with absolute and uncompromising hostility from every side. Your presence alone is considered an insult to their victory. And the consequences for ignoring these warnings are entirely irreversible. The Taliban's idea of law is not something you want to experience firsthand, especially as an American who represents their greatest enemy. In the mountains and valleys of this rugged land, your main character syndrome will be met with a cold and final ending. Number 3. Iran. Coming in at number 3 is Iran, a country with a rich history, but a government that defines itself by its opposition to the United States. While the Iranian people are often known for their incredible hospitality in private, the public and political reality is a different story. For a white American, traveling here is like walking into a maze where every corner could lead to an accusation of espionage. The death to America chants you see on the news are not just for show, they represent a core pillar of the state's ideology. The Revolutionary Guard is a powerful force that operates above the normal law. And they have a special interest in Western visitors. They look at an American tourist not as a guest, but as a potential spy or a tool for cultural infiltration. Even if you follow every rule, you can still find yourself caught in the middle of a political dispute between Washington and Tehran. The moral police are always watching to ensure that your dress and behavior strictly follow their interpretation of religious law. For women, this means a mandatory headscarf and modest clothing at all times, with no exceptions for tourists. For men, it means avoiding any behavior that could be seen as Western decadence or disrespect to the Islamic Republic. If you are detained, you will likely be held in the notorious Evin prison, a place where many Westerners have spent years in isolation. Your white privilege will not help you in an interrogation room where the guards see you as the face of the great Satan. Iran has a history of using dual nationals and Westerners as human bargaining chips to gain concessions from the United States. There is no formal diplomatic relationship between the two countries, meaning you are essentially on your own if things go wrong. The Swiss embassy might try to help, but their power is extremely limited when dealing with the hardline elements of the Iranian state. Many Americans think they can bridge the gap with personal connections, but the state does not care about your individual friendships. To the men in power, you are a symbol of a century of perceived American meddling in their internal affairs. In Iran, your passport is a red flag that invites constant surveillance and the threat of indefinite detention without cause. This is number 2. Somalia. Number 2 is Somalia, a place where the danger is so extreme that it defies all Western comprehension of safety. Most Americans only know about Somalia from military history and the tragic events surrounding the Black Hawk Down incident years ago. If you look at a map, you might see a beautiful coastline and wonder why developers have not built luxury resorts there yet. The answer is that the vast majority of the population lives in crushing poverty. And the rule of law simply does not exist for them. Somalia consistently ranks at the absolute bottom of the Global Human Development Index, making it incredibly volatile and desperate. The United States government issues warnings for Somalia that are so terrifying they sound like dialogue from a horror movie script. Before you even attempt to travel there, they explicitly advise you to draft a will and designate someone to care for your children. They also highly recommend that you leave behind DNA samples with your medical provider so your family can identify your remains if needed. When your own government tells you to leave DNA behind, they are explicitly stating that your privilege cannot save your life. You are walking into a lawless territory where violent crime, terrorist attacks, and high seas piracy are just daily occurrences. 1. The country is littered with illegal roadblocks set up by various armed factions who demand immediate cash payments to let you pass. If you refuse to pay, or if you try to argue with them like an angry customer at a retail store, you will not survive the day. There is no manager to speak to, no police officer to call for help, and no embassy to run to for protection or shelter. They will simply drag you out into the desert, take everything you own, and end your life without a second thought. The warnings do not say there is a slight chance you might get kidnapped. They suggest that it is an absolute certainty for a Westerner. Somalia is the ultimate reality check for anyone who believes that American confidence is a substitute for actual survival skills and common sense. It is a brutal environment where the color of your passport makes you nothing more than a highly visible target for extreme violence. Any trace of arrogance you bring across their borders will be met with immediate and unforgiving consequences from the local armed factions. In a land where life is cheap and weapons are everywhere, an American tourist is the ultimate prize for a desperate warlord. Number 1, North Korea. Finally, coming in at number 1 is the ultimate forbidden zone, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, better known as North Korea. This is one of the only places on the planet where the United States completely and outright bans its citizens from visiting for any reason. Your blue passport is legally invalid for travel here, making it the ultimate brick wall for Western entitlement and travel freedom. But if you magically manage to secure an exception, you would quickly realize that you are stepping into a psychological nightmare. North Korea does not want white Americans to visit because they respect them. As said, they want them there as living props for state television. From the second you land, you are assigned government minders who will never leave your side for the duration of your trip. They will feed you a constant stream of propaganda, telling you that their supreme leader is a flawless superhuman being. You are not allowed to wander, you cannot speak to random citizens, and every single photograph you take will be strictly inspected by guards. If you try to take a picture of a building from a bad angle, they will force you to delete it immediately and apologize. Many arrogant tourists have gone to North Korea thinking they could pull a prank or steal a souvenir for a cool story to tell back home. We have all seen the tragic news stories of what happens when an American crosses the line in a totalitarian regime. Taking down a simple propaganda poster from a hotel wall will result in a sentence of 15 years of hard labor in a brutal camp. Your government cannot fly in and demand your release because the two nations have absolutely no diplomatic relations or communication. The North Korean government will parade your weeping, apologizing self on international television to prove the superiority of their system. You are completely stripped of your humanity and transformed into a circus monkey to entertain and validate their political narrative. There is no room for mistakes, no margin for error, and absolutely zero tolerance for Western cultural ignorance or pride. North Korea is the ultimate proof that there are massive sections of this world where your privilege is entirely meaningless and dead. It stands as the starkest reminder that stepping out of the American bubble can sometimes be a one-way trip from which you never return. In this hermit kingdom, your identity is erased, and you become nothing more than a tool for a regime that views you as the ultimate enemy. Thank you for watching this countdown, and remember to travel with respect and awareness of the world around you. The world is a vast and complicated place. And it does not always revolve around the expectations of those with a blue passport and a camera. Keep your eyes open, your voice down, and your respect high as you navigate the globe. Remember that when you cross a border, you are surrendering the protection of your home and entering a world with its own rules. Stay humble, stay safe, and never assume that the world owes you a warm welcome just because of where you were born.